All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Gaming Gaiden. I'm here. This is Mike, and I'm here with my boy.
Woo! It's Andrew, everybody. I'm excited about our topic. Love the Saturn, and it's not very loved by many, but that's why I don't know. It's like the underdog in the fight.
That's right. So we're here today to talk about our top 3 Saturn games, and this is a very special system, I think, for both of us. How did you get started with the Saturn?
I think I was just a Sega head for a while. Like, looking back, the Super Nintendo was obviously better, but I think because I was a spoiled doctor's kid, I got the Sega CD, I got the 32X, and I loved, like, the gear, and I mean, I loved, like, Sonic and, like, all the Sega games, so I was teed up to like Saturn too. And like, well, we'll get into it. I don't want to like list the games.
Yeah, I know. I'm the same way. It's kind of like, well,
it just had like some of the first 3D games that were like really good, and we'll get into it. And like, but also the best 2D games at the time too, which can't be ignored.
Oh no.
So yeah. Oh, I wanted to say too, I might have said this in another episode, but before we get started, a few years ago, I had some friends over at my place in LA. They're gamers. They're only a year or two older than me. They grew up with video games. They like games. We've talked about games a lot. They saw my Saturn and they were like, "What is that?"
God, that's crazy to me.
I said it was a Sega Saturn, and they were like, "What is that?" And I was like, it blew my mind, but at the same time, we all know the Saturn was like the third in everybody's hearts in America at that time. Yeah. So I feel like in some people's minds, it was just the N64 battling the PS1. And
which wasn't even a battle in my mind.
It was barely a battle, but like people like Sega bowed out in their minds and then came back for Dreamcast, because everybody seems to remember Dreamcast like absolutely no problem. But with Saturn, it's like, I don't know. And also the ramp up into it, like we knew Sega, like gamers knew Sega. Sony was new at the time. We didn't know what was going to happen with PlayStation. I remember reading about this in EGM. We had no idea, but then again, cut to its release day. It was a huge hit fucking immediately, and I guess immediately overshadowed the Saturn, sadly enough. But I was going to stay the course. I mean, I ended up getting both of them, but the Saturn and the Saturn does hold a special place in my heart. Anyway.
Yeah, it absolutely does for me. And no, I think there's a little bit we should talk about there, right? Because this game system should have set the world on fire, and it absolutely did not. It fizzled right out.
And in Japan, it did.
Well, it did very well in Japan, yeah. And they have a larger library. But I'm saying set the world on fire. I'm saying not just Japan. It should have been big in America. It should have been big throughout Europe. And it wasn't. It wasn't. And that there are some issues there. So I checked out. I wish I had double checked what the books I read were. But like I had gone through a couple of history of video games, audio books and stuff earlier this year. And they were talking about sort of the business angle here. And they really felt like there was a lot of contention back and forth between Sega of Japan and Sega of America and how things should be presented. And that sort of stealth drop at E3.
Tokyo Game Show?
It was the E3 announcement about the Sega Saturn, where they were saying like, oh, it's available now. They did this like shadow drop before shadow drops were really a thing, right? And it was available in limited numbers in certain select markets or something like that in certain cities. But then what happened was you had certain retailers getting upset. I believe KB Toys had been a major retailer. They said, you're going to just go ahead and put this out there, and then people are going to these other stores to get it. You didn't even tell us it existed, and they stopped carrying Sega. Like, just
I don't think I was even aware of that.
So like there was a lot going on of these bad business decisions that really set them up for failure. And there was also the hardware issue of 3D and 2D. I've read conflicting reports about whether or not that was a major factor in the redesign to the hardware, but
So
most people
okay,
agree. Yes.
about that, they I remember in EGM and all the magazines, they kind of said the same thing, but especially EGM for me.
Yep.
The Saturn was a bitch to program for. It was like this dual processor thing or something like that. It was just an absolute fucking nightmare. It's like that's why it's been one of the hardest to emulate over the years, is because it was just such a fucking bitch to make a game for. Yeah. So the PlayStation comes out, and apparently PS1 was an absolute fucking dream.
Yes.
And like it was just the easiest thing to program for, hence their immediate success. And God, what was there's some famous woman programmer that said that like when the Dreamcast came out, they made a full 180. Like I said, it was the easiest fucking thing you could ever imagine to make a game for.
To go like Windows CE custom version.
They learned their mistake with the Saturn full force.
Yeah, I think that the PlayStation 1, if I remember correctly, I think it was assembly, so people could sort of write directly in a language they were familiar with. They didn't have to learn the unique idiosyncratic dev kit for the Saturn. With the PlayStation, it was like, oh, you already likely know how to work in assembly or whatever this is. So it was easy for a lot of people to just be like, yeah, we can put stuff out on the PlayStation. So,
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And that really
it sucked for the Saturn though, but yeah.
Yeah. And of course, in that same event or whatever, where they announced the Saturn and the price when the Saturn launched, it was $399. $400, which adjusted for inflation is a lot of money. I didn't check the calculations on this. So when Sony came up to do their announcement, right, the new kid on the block, they just kind of cut it short, right? And that sort of classic mic drop moment. The guy gets up there and he's like, $299. And that's it. That's like your death sentence right there.
Yeah.
That's
Saturn
you're coming in at $100 cheaper. Oh,
yeah.
That's
with
huge.
Resident Evil, like as a fucking like what you call it, a launch title, right? Wasn't it a launch?
No,
title?
I don't think it was a launch title. No.
Okay.
That followed up a little later. But
Jumping Flash, though, my bro. Jumping Flash.
Jumping Flash was launch. Yeah.
Battle Arena Toshinden. Man, Southern dudes' accents on Battle Arena Toshinden. Man, it was glorious back then, dude. Toshinden. Yeah.
But yeah, my friend actually got the Saturn. He got it early on, and
at the Shadow Drop.
I was not impressed. So I didn't come into the Saturn until pretty late in its life cycle. I say late, but like, what is that, like 2 or 3 years later? Back then, it felt like an eternity.
Spoiled kid, man. I had it all. I had it like I didn't get it like randomly, but I got it for birthday or Christmas. It was probably Christmas. I remember Sega CD was birthday, but that's just how it was for me. But yeah, they were expensive as hell, and like especially getting that with some games, like my god.
Yeah. By that time, I had to buy my own systems, so like I had put everything to get hold of that PlayStation 1. So that's it. That was all there was to it.
Right.
I was gonna wait, but yeah, when I first played the Saturn, my friend had Virtua Fighter, and I think it was the first version, like not before the remix. I'm not sure how bad it was compared to the remix, but for me, Virtua Fighter was just like the wrong thing to lead with, because I was not at all interested in 3D, and it felt like this weird floaty jump.
You've talked about this. You had quite a hard time with 3D. Like for me, I'm only like 3 or 4 years younger than you, but like that's a big deal when you're kid gaming age, I think. And like I was just excited for the new technology, and the whole world was new. I mean, yes, sprites look amazing. I love sprites, but I knew that wasn't going to last forever, and it was like a brand new world. It was like I think honestly, we've talked about this before, I think, but the PS1 and Saturn days are like my top gaming days. Like that was the time when I was probably the most into gaming. I mean,
Hmm.
SNES also, like SNES and Genesis, almost the same fervency, but I think it really culminated into a head
Hmm.
with PS1 and Saturn, for sure. I was just full speed
Yeah.
ahead with EGM, and it was just I was starting to build my little personality,
Yeah.
you know? That's
There
how it
was
was.
heady days for sure, man. Definitely. It was some pretty crazy stuff, but like
I loved it.
I eventually came around on the Saturn, and I'm going to sort of keep that under wraps until later as we get through my games and stuff. But yeah, it was basically I had this watershed moment of it can do that. Okay, I'm buying it. And that's like, and I had a job at that point, but I was old enough. I had a job, and I was just like, yeah, I'm going to buy this now, and I'm going to buy all sorts of crap for it. So I came to it kind of late, but I ended up absolutely adoring the Saturn.
I gotta say, man, because it's the underdog system, I think that there's a little bit of like, it has like a more hardcore gamer feel to it
Mm.
overall. Like PS1 was definitely not like a casual system by any means, but I don't know. Like there
No,
was
it was
definitely
the PS1 was
just
kind of this
more
like marriage of hardcore and casual at the time. It was for
right. And
both. So,
Saturn was just hardcore. I think it just has that vibe to it,
mm,
you
yeah.
know. So anyway, dude, what's your number three,
Let's
man?
get
We're
to
going
it.
three,
All
two,
right.
one, and
So here we
we're gonna
go.
do 3, 2, and then honorable mentions, and then other slight comments real quick, and then we'll listen to number one, and Mike and I will be going off and on. So
All
take
right.
it away.
All right. So my number three game. This is something that was big back in the days of cathode ray tubes. You gotta love them. There's one behind me there. If you could see.
So good, dude.
Uh,
I want one.
I love light gun games. Absolutely adored them. And Virtua Cop 2 was so much
Yeah.
fun. I played so much of this game. And the thing is, like I said, I came to the Saturn late in its life. So I was able to get a lot of stuff really cheap, especially
It's
since
so good, dude.
like everything was just like second class basically in terms of the video game market at that point for Sega Saturn. So I could get anything for chump change. And actually I put this aside because I wanted to show it because it's a funny little artifact. Not only do I have my copy of Virtua Cop 2 here,
Wow.
but maybe we could see that label. It was purchased from a Blockbuster Video.
That's
they,
so good,
they were
dude.
always clearing their games out because they weren't getting rented. I can't get a good focus on that. But yeah,
No, but
you could
that's
say.
cool though. You don't have the box, but you have the disc though. That's more than
No,
most.
dude, I, like I said, when I moved back and forth constantly, I was always on the move. I needed to just get rid of boxes. So it's very rare that I actually have a box from back in the day.
Did you
So,
take that to Japan with you?
uh, I might have.
That disc?
I might have
Okay.
I bought another copy, I think, when I was in Japan. I have, this is pretty funny. I was like, let me just check really quickly. This is basically my Saturn collection.
They don't get scratched like that.
I mean, I'm pretty gentle with them, but like they're not going to get scratched enough that it's a problem.
Okay.
I also have Dreamcast games in there too, but that's not my whole collection of Dreamcast. But it's pretty much
Bro.
everything for Saturn, except for one or two games. But yeah, I went crazy with it. And then when we were in Japan, oh my God, I bought so many Saturn games. But Virtua Cop 2, man, I loved. I played it on the controller and I played it with the gun. And I liked them both, actually. They're really fun. The little like 1, 2, 3 that you can do to hit a guy. So like you hit him with the first shot and there's kind of recoil, and then they get hit with the second, and then they sort of flip around. Like I can't even believe how gratifying that is. And it's funny because now like I have such an aversion to guns, and I don't like playing shooting games anymore because obviously now guns have really changed in their sort of cultural impact and perspective.
Yeah.
But this game, I loved it so much. And I played the first one too. I love the first one as well. I guess you could kind of just consider them kind of one game because I'll happily go play a half hour Virtua Cop 1, go get a cracker or two, and then come back and play Virtua Cop 2. Like they're great. So yeah, that's my number 3, Virtua Cop 2. Loved it.
Dude, that is awesome. I had Virtual Cop 1 and 2. That was that was the last generation where I played light gun games, because I don't think I mean, full disclosure, I never had a PS2 or a GameCube. I skipped that entire generation of gaming because I was graduating college and going to Japan and blah blah blah. You know, I think PS3 was just coming out when I moved to Japan or something. But it was like, but I love those games. Like that was like the last great like light gun time, I think, because the newer the systems get, the less you see of any of that. I mean, remember the Super Scope and the Menacer or whatever? Super Nintendo and Genesis?
I never tried them, but they always thought they were cool.
Super Scope was sick, dude. It was. And I think it was called the Menacer, and it was also pretty good. I have more memories with the Super Scope. But anyway, I think it was PlayStation only, but just to detour slightly for a second, I think, looking back, the best light gun game of all time is the Point Blank series.
They're so good. They're
so good, dude.
Especially for 2-player.
It's so good. It's like Mario Party meets light gun gaming.
Constantly. Loved it. And the GunCon had the little the jack that went between the AV output and the composite cable. So like it was doubly accurate because it was actually directly getting the video feed from the system.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Oh, so good. So good. I love Point Blank.
That was a great series, man. It's called Gun Bullet in Japan. So, my third pick is one I didn't grow up with. I feel almost like I'm cheating, but I played this on emulator. It emulates fine. I will buy a copy of this eventually, but it's Saturn Bomberman.
Oh, yeah.
I love this game. I love all Bomberman games pretty much because they're very, very similar, let's be honest. But this one, it just lives up to the hype, man. People say, if you look up best Bomberman games, this is generally at the top. I haven't done the 10-player versus yet, but I'd love to. I really want to do that.
I didn't even realize it went up to 10. I have a multi-tap for 6-player, but I didn't know it did 10.
I think you need 2 multi-taps, and it goes up to 10 players on one big screen. Look it up. And it's a huge battle all at once. And like the graphics are great. It has great cutscenes. And another huge thing, dude, the music in this game is like, what the fuck? I'll play a little some right now. But yeah, so the music is awesome, man. Like, you should look it up later. But
I had Saturn Bomb. I have it actually. It's in that pile.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's
Did
good.
you grow up playing Bomberman with your brothers and shit?
I don't have any brothers.
Or sisters, sorry.
No, my sisters are 10 years older than I was, and like my parents split and we all went in different directions. I kind of grew up as an only child. So like my friend that I played Saturn with, my friend that I played Street Fighter with, the same person, right? So growing up, we were really close. You know, kind of like my friends were kind of like my brothers, but like we didn't live in the same place, so we didn't always get to play. But most weekends we would hang out and play. Okay.
Yeah. But
Saturn Bomberman came later. So that was already I think I was in college already. So.
Oh, were you? I mean, yeah, I was. And like, some people I've talked with some people that are like our age, and they've never played Bomberman in their life, and I'm like, this was a huge thing for me growing up because I have 2 younger brothers. Also, we had the Super Nintendo multi-tap, and we used to play that. And
Bomberman's been on everything. So like, what's up, people? You can't miss this game.
Here's the thing, and look, you and I are on the same page when it comes to this. Like, I like kawaii graphics. Games ostensibly made for kids, like smaller kids. Like I love my Resident Evils, I love Doom, I love my M-rated games, but I never left kawaii like kiddie graphic games. Like I told some people that I loved the latest Switch Mario, and they gave me a weird look one time. This is at work, like Mario Odyssey, and I was just like, to me, a game like Mario or Bomberman is such a staple. It doesn't matter how old you are. Like, this is gaming. This is gaming. It's never going to go away in my eyes. But there's a lot of people our age or younger or older that, like, as soon as they reached like 13, 14, they never looked back. They never played another Mario. They never did anything. But you know, I still play these games, and I will say this. This is maybe a hot take, but I think Bomberman is the greatest multiplayer game of all time. It's better than Halo. It's better than whatever the fuck, Fortnite or whatever it is. It's probably an old man pick at this point, but I stand by it. And a lot of Japanese people that I know, they love it. Like, and you know, not to get too gendered here, but I do find that women love Bomberman. And if you ever have troubles finding a game to play with your girlfriend or your wife, I highly recommend Bomberman. And Saturn Bomberman is the best of the bunch. It is true. It's on all the lists, and I agree with it. So there that is. Mike, what's your number 2?
Yeah. All right. Let's see. My number 2. So my number 2 is an interesting one. This game, everybody's going to know this game. But at the time, it was kind of a weird... it was kind of a weird unknown. Not that the game series was unknown, but it was a move in a different direction, and I just decided to take a gamble because at the time I was working at a golf course. I worked at a snack bar, and it was not a tip job, but I did get tips anyway because I just put a jar out. So I would go take my cash and buy a game like every week. And
so awesome.
This game came in, and I was like, you know what? I'm interested in this, you know, and not too many new games are coming for Saturn at this point. I'll try it out. So I took it home and I played Panzer Dragoon Saga. And
you had it.
Yeah, I bought it brand new when it came into the shop. I was like, "Oh, what's this?" You know? Yeah. Okay, I'll try it. Why not? Why not? Let's do it. There's not many Saturn games coming out. Let's go for it. So I bought it, and I ended up really, really enjoying it. And it was such an interesting thing too, because it was like the other Panzer Dragoon games, but at the same time, it had this turn-based thing. Have you played through Panzer Dragoon Saga?
I haven't played through it. I'm playing it right now on my Steam Deck, as it were.
Oh, nice.
So that is awesome.
Yeah, and it's locked to the Saturn. So like, if you have to emulate it, please, by all means, I will say, like, do that, because there's no other way to play this game. Dude, like, you can't get a hold of original copies easily.
Supposedly, they've lost the source code. Yeah. So that's why there hasn't been a, re-release, HD remaster. If this thing came out on Switch, it's over. That's so cool.
They did that a lot back in the day. They just didn't keep the source code. And that's, that's why games are in such a bad state when it comes to archival purposes. Like, there's not a lot of good support for it, because it's like, oh, here it is as a product. Has it made enough money? Is it no longer making money? Leave it behind. Let's get the next thing. There's not really a respect or appreciation for it. But in any case, Panzer Dragoon Saga is a really good game. But I don't think anybody nowadays would be wowed by it. You're not going to like, oh my God, this is incredible.
Right. Instead, it was wow at the time, for sure.
There was a lot of wow factor at the time, but also, like, the important thing I feel like about this game is the combat is interesting. I like the turn-based style. We did see them return to this with Skies of Arcadia and the ship battles, where you kind of have the turn-based thing where you go side to side, you're facing north, south, east, west. You need to pull ahead and then and face to the rear to attack. But it's just like, the game has a vibe, and it's really strong, and it's a very immersive kind of game. There were actually times when I was so tired from that job, I was waking up, like, I had the early morning shift, so I opened up the snack bar at a golf course. People were ready to tee off before the sun's up, Right, and you got to tell them, like, wait, man, the coffee's not ready. Just back the fuck up already. But so I would be there at night playing it after the job, and sometimes I would fall asleep in like the little sort of dungeon areas because the like ambient music was just so relaxing, and the like blue and green environments. It was just such a calming and interesting game, and I had such a good time with it. It really was a special experience. And nobody else had it. Nobody else was talking about it. So it was really kind of this very private, personal experience.
I remember it was talked about in the what you call it, an EGM. I remember reading about it. I guess I just wasn't an RPG guy too much growing up. That's why I never got it. But it is one I'm interested in. I have started it. But what would you? I mean, is it the gameplay? Is it the story? Like, it's just what is it that makes this game good?
It's a little bit of everything. I think the sound design is really good. Like, I can just think back on it, and I kind of hear like the little moan of the dragon and the wind blowing and the ambient music of the environments, the lock-on shot releasing and firing on the opponent. It did something that I used to love about Star Wars that they kind of stopped doing, where they had languages that you didn't understand. You know, they created languages for the game, and it was all subtitled. So actually, I really like that. I love that feature. But it really is. It's cool. Very much a vibe. Cool. And like, it's like I said, I don't think it's going to wow anyone these days. If you're going to play it, you got to play it on emulation. But like, hopefully that Saturn core comes through for the Mister and people can play it on a CRT, because it's going to look better on a CRT. You need a little bit of that magic. So play it with filters if your computer will run it with filters, because you're going to see it's a Saturn game. You're going to see like crazy dithering and stuff like that. It just doesn't look right. But yeah.
Okay. It's not that long either, right? It's like 20 hours?
Probably, which I think is as long as any game really should be.
I know, man. Some of these games are just way too long.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. The Panzer Dragoon 1 soundtrack I listen to a lot, maybe once a month. It is, we need to maybe do an episode on this eventually, but it is one of my top gaming soundtracks ever. Nice. I love that shit, man. It's so good. It's so epic and sweeping, and reminds me of Water somehow. I don't know. Yeah, I totally feel it.
It's like, it's a vibe that you can't fully explain. You just kind of need to go play it and you'll get it.
It's funny you say that, because some friends of mine that you do not know, I met up with them in Japan. They were both visiting last December, and I asked them what's good about it, and they said the vibes.
Yeah.
God, that's crazy, man. That must be true.
That's so cool. Really funny, but yeah, that's really it.
Great pick, man. So my number 2 one is Virtua Fighter 2.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Huge fighting game fan, always have been. I love Virtua Fighter 1 as well. You know, you had to have it. It 2 was like, it was a sequel. It was like the same thing, but a little bit better bells and whistles. So that's why it's on there. And it was before, well, Virtua Fighter just kept on going up until, I don't know, like, definitely 3 was 3 was on the Saturn as well? No, 3 was Dreamcast.
3TB, 3 Team Battle, showed up on the Dreamcast.
Dreamcast, yeah.
And then 4, and then 5.
I had a friend that he was like, I wish that they would go back to their original look of looking like, they were made out of wood or something, like the low polygon count. And I was like, I had to tell him, like, dude, that wasn't a look. That was
state of the art.
That was 1992, bro, when they were making it. Released in 93, I guess. Like, this is really early 3D. So,
they did do that, actually. On Virtua Fighter 4 Evolution.
With the new one? Yeah,
the greatest hits update release on Virtua Fighter 4 on PlayStation 2. They released it with a 10th anniversary disc. And you could play the VF4 fighters and, of course, the original ones in like a VF1 style look.
It's a cool look. It is a cool look, but
Hmm.
I mean, it wasn't a look they were going for. It was
No, it wasn't. Not at
It's the
that
only
time.
look that they could make.
Yeah.
But God, man, it was at the time and even now, it was kind of, I kind of looked at it as like the deep fighter. They always talked about how the depth of Street Fighter, and there was a certain depth to it. But I will say, it felt like every combo was like punch, 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 kick. Like, okay, you got the deepest fighter imaginable at this time, but all the combos kind of, at least everybody has the same combo pretty much. And there's more to it than that, of course, but we had so much fun with that, man. I have 2 younger brothers. We played the ever-living fuck out of that.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't like it as much, especially when Tekken came out. Tekken was really the killer for that, especially because, I mean, granted, Virtua Fighter characters don't look quite as fun, but there's still, I don't know, there's something about it. And, like,
Yeah.
it was
No,
just
I
like
really- I
the
do
height of
respect
technology every time. Every time a new Virtua Fighter came out, it was the height of technology for a while.
Virtua Fighter 2 was definitely a big leap in quality from the first one, I felt.
Yeah.
I still didn't want to play it, but like I looked at it and I was just like, hey, okay, you're starting to get somewhere now. This is starting
You
to
were
look
never
good.
you were never a Virtua Fighter guy.
No, not until part 4.
Oh, 4. Okay, but
Four
after
is
4,
where I
you
got
liked
in.
it.
Yeah. I started with 4. I was in the arcades in Japan. I saw Virtua Fighter 4. I saw Vanessa with her Valeturo just like beat the shit out of someone, and I was like, fucking A, this character's for me. And I started playing Virtua Fighter.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Virtua Fighter. It was also just like very representative of the Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, that is a fucking Saturn game. It couldn't be on anything else, at least at the time. Like, it was, I don't know. It was
the
like,
3D
this is why I got
graphics.
the system, man.
The interesting thing to me about it is like I look back and I think about the 3D graphics, say on Tekken 1, right? Or even Tekken 2. And Virtua Fighter 2 on the Saturn just looks so much cleaner and better.
Yeah.
It
was
really
made for
looks
them.
good.
So what's your next one, bro?
All right. So before we get into, the number 1, I'll just give a quick shout out here to some of the other honorable mentions. Well, just one really. The reason I don't put this as my number 3, number 2, number 1 is that I kind of just play it wherever it shows up, which is kind of like the Bomberman idea. Bust-A-Move 2, which is Puzzle Bobble 2. I have that on the Saturn, the American version. I got it in Japan again too. I just love it. I just love Bust-A-Move 2. And I don't really know that Bust-A-Move 3 or 4 or any of the other ones have anything better to offer me. Because like even now on my Xbox, when the arcade archives came up, I was like, oh, they have Bust-A-Move. I'm just going to wait for part 2. When Bust-A-Move part 2 came on, I just bought it right away. Because there's just something about that second Bust-A-Move 2. Maybe it's because I played that one in the arcade a little more than the others. But yeah, I was very happy with that on the Saturn. And I remember one night I was doing my media resource job and I came back and there were a couple of girls from down the hall hanging out with my roommate playing Bust-A-Move 2. And I was just like, see, now that's great. Here's a game that, right? This is that cutesy Bomberman kind of idea again. That appeals across to many groups.
Yes.
And everybody was loving it. It's just all sorts of people you would never expect enjoyed that game. So honorable mention goes to Bust-A-Move 2.
I definitely had that on Saturn as well, bro.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I'm going to do my little list real quick. So my runners-up are all Capcom fighters, except for, well, you'll see. Anyway, and then Hidden Gems. Actually, no, these aren't Hidden Gems. What am I talking about? But other ones I wanted to mention real quick. I love the Knights. I love the Panzer Dragoon series, and I'm liking Saga now too. And really quick, if you look up Saturn Hidden Gems, there's so many games I owned, dude. Like, I had a lot of these. Like, I had Scud. I owned Three Dirty Dwarves. I owned Dark Savior. And they were all good. They were all really good. Saturn was such a good system, man.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few games that I still want to try. I haven't even played that I think might be great for me, but I just never got to them, never got a hold of them.
Three Dirty Dwarves is like
Mm.
one you should definitely pick out. It was 3-player, not 2. I mean, you could do 1 or 2, but it, like the full experience was 3-player, not 4-player. Ends at 3, which was interesting, and it was like a beat 'em up, but it had a really good like American comic art style with like these dwarves. It was good. It was good. It's a true hidden gem, and I fucking owned it. And I wish I didn't sell all these games, but I did. So you're number 1, man.
All right, number 1. My number 1 is the very reason that I owned a Saturn in the first place. I was reading through the magazines, and they talked about these crazy quality import games that you could get. And they had something called this 4 meg RAM card that would just send it straight to the moon, man. It's incredible.
Praise Jesus.
X-Men versus Street Fighter. Now, it's just the funny thing is, like, I had played X-Men versus Street Fighter in the arcade. Well, not the arcade. I played it at this place called Dragon's Den that used to sell.
You never played at the arcade?
No, what I mean is it was an arcade cabinet, but it wasn't in an arcade. Because at this point, I think I was in college at that point, and it was just like, we didn't really have a good scene to go play against people. So like I went to this Dragon's Den and I was like, yo, this is cool looking, but nobody was playing it. So like I would mess around with it, but I didn't really understand. I didn't really understand how the Versus series worked, or the Children of the Atom sort of not custom combos. What did they call that? Chain combos. I didn't really understand that stuff because I was like, this isn't really Street Fighter. This is me reacting to an anime fighter before anime fighters were called anime fighters. You know, like, oh my God, what's going on here? This is insane.
Not 6 buttons?
It was 6 buttons, but
it
just worked differently. It was like you would go light, medium, say like you'd start with the punches, go light, medium, and then go to the kicks, light, medium, and then finish it with a heavy punch or a heavy kick. That was like your quick, simple combo.
X-Men versus Street Fighter was 6 button?
Yeah.
God, I forgot about that.
So was Marvel versus Street Fighter, which I loved too. And like that could have been on this list too. But like the thing is, X-Men versus Street Fighter is the very reason that I owned a Saturn. I saw the information about that, and they said like, this is without a doubt the best way to play this game. The PlayStation version is a joke. It doesn't even have the team play unless you're playing the same characters, which is like, okay, get out of here. I'm not messing with that. The Saturn, I knew the PlayStation couldn't handle 2D because I got Rayman at launch.
Rayman, I know I laughed at you on that last episode, but Rayman was like it had like 13 fucking ads in every fucking issue, and I didn't know a single soul that played Rayman. It had a campaign budget like you wouldn't believe, but I guess it worked on you at the time.
Well, it did. I didn't even, nothing mattered. It just, when I looked at the launch lineup for PlayStation 1, I was like, this is a good looking 2D game, judging by this box, because I don't have any other information. So I went for it. But in any case,
right.
X-Men versus Street Fighter on the Sega Saturn had the 4 meg RAM card. So at the time, like I had to get the ST key, which unlocked the region. And then I would have to do like a quick magic swap with my hands from one cartridge to the other cartridge so that it would load without me without booting me back to the menu, because it was an import game on my American system. But it was so worth it. I loved that game, and it just was like, this is me having an arcade in my home. This is the best thing I've ever seen in my life. I don't even understand
perfect, I believe
how good this is. Yes, it was incredible. It was even better than the arcade version because you had more color choices for the characters. And I used to get so happy setting up my like blue Zangief and blue Dalsim team. It was just like, I could never get enough. And when Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter came out, I was like right on that too. And I thought we were going to get Marvel Capcom on there, but that eventually got pushed back to Dreamcast. But yeah, X-Men vs. Street Fighter is the reason that I owned the Saturn in the first place, because I saw how well it could run 2D fighters. And as soon as I saw that, I went out, I got hold of Saturn. I got that import. I started buying up everything I could. Every Capcom fighter I could. for that system because that was the best way to play them, hands down. And I loved it for that, and I still do.
Bro, well, my number one pick is also X-Men versus Street Fighter. Ding, 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 ding. It's the first time it ever happened, I think, on the podcast.
Oh, shit, yeah.
So, yeah, dude, it can't be fucking beat, dude. God. Jesus. It was the best. It was arcade perfect. I had the 4 meg cart just like you. I think I don't know. Either I imported it or I don't know. I don't think I don't know what happened. I had the American version maybe, but I had the 4 meg cart. I don't know what the fuck. I can't remember at this point.
There was no American release of X-Men versus Street Fighter, but eventually what you might have gotten that I eventually also got was the action replay that allowed you to bypass the region lock and had 4 megabytes built in.
I think that's what I had. Yeah, like because we played the ever-living fuck out of that. And before that, the ramp-up, too, was Marvel Superheroes, also on Saturn. And, like, God, there was probably some Darkstalkers game, too. Like, I'd just get all the Capcom games. And, like, again, this was EGM informing me, like, you got to get it on Saturn, not PlayStation. So that's what I did. And the amount of hours we put into that with me and my brothers, it was just insane. Just like I grew up with the X-Men cartoon, and they had all those voices, they were all the same. And then the Street Fighter was like all that was the same gameplay but better, and like the tagging was great, and like God, man, it was like, you know, we had bought a 3D system, but it ended up being this 2D powerhouse, and it was so good, dude. I mean, it really is like the best Saturn game, I guess. And you know, Marvel Superheroes might have been at the top if it wasn't for this one, because Marvel Superheroes was just Marvel, which is cool, but it was like the preemptive thing to that. But X-Men versus Street Fighter also in the arcade. When I look back as a kid, man, I think some of the most fun times ever was this is my you talk about Nathan's and shit. This is my Nathan's. There was this laser tag place called Qzar, Q-ZAR. So they had the laser tag that was their main thing, but they had an arcade too, and they had the Point Blank, and they had Police Trainer, which was, look, I know.
Is that the motion one?
No, it was
I think I know what you mean. Yeah,
it was like mini games and shit. But it was like supposed to train you as a policeman, and that was very fun. And it had X-Men versus Street Fighter, so play like, 10 games of that, and then go play laser tag. Which, by the way, this is like the height of my childhood. Like hype was. They also played the Killer Instincts, Killer Cuts album while we did laser tag, just blasting that 90s industrial techno shit. And I was like, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, Qzar, Point Blank, Killer Cuts on the soundtrack, pizza. This is absolute fucking heaven, and it
still would be if that place existed now. Like you could do all the same exact stuff and it would still be fantastic.
The top, dude. It was just so good, dude. And X-Men versus Street Fighter, God, it was just the best. And then to play on Saturn, dude. It was just so good, dude. Unbelievable, man.
So beautiful. And it just like, it's funny because it's like, the PlayStation impressed me, and there was a lot of cool stuff all the way through, but like nothing filled my heart with the kind of joy that I felt seeing that game run, X-Men versus Street Fighter, the first time. Just being like, I can't believe this is possible at home. This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life.
I think that really the two series best are X-Men versus Street Fighter and Marvel versus Capcom 2. Now, Marvel vs. Capcom 1 is good, but it's overshadowed by 2. And X-Men vs. Street Fighter is the precursor to all of that, but it's like kind of different enough in a different generation, kind of, so it almost sits on its own. But like those Capcom versus, those are the top, probably. And God, what they've done with Marvel vs. Capcom lately is just kind of a shame. And hopefully that they'll put some sort of budget in to do that again, but with Street Fighter 6 style graphics and the way that those colors pop, because it just looks so drab in the latest ones.
You know, I was really disappointed with Infinite's look, but I was not at all disappointed with how Infinite played. I really enjoyed it. I just found it ugly.
It's ugly as hell. Yeah, and a new Darkstalkers too would be so great. You know, with this like Street Fighter 6 style look. Yeah, like they've really nailed it with next generation systems and graphics. So, but
yeah, I think they did a great job. My favorite thing about this is that it's their own engine, so like they don't have to worry about licensing fees. They put a lot of work into building that RE engine, and now they can use it to make all these other great games. And I'm really hoping that they leverage it, because there's so much good stuff.
They should, man. I would put fucking Red Earth out and shit. Like, I just do it all, man.
I don't know that they're going to want to deal with Disney and Marvel again. I'm sure they had issues with the whole creative direction and having to be in line with the color palette of the MCU and all that stuff. Like, it's just, nah, man. But like,
dude, that Avengers game sucked. The Guardians game was like halfway decent. But yeah, like they just dropped the ball. Here's the other thing about X vs. Street Fighter. That fucking art in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Yeah. Like it's a Japanese person that
it's more Marvel than Marvel.
It drew a Japanese person drew, you know, not just Street Fighter but the Marvel side as well, and it just looks so fucking good. It's like
that's Bengus.
That is some of the best Marvel art I've ever seen, fucking hands down. It's like one of the best Venoms. It's like his Omega Red, all this fucking shit, dude. Like every one of all those characters, that's fucking Capcom. But I was about to say Captain Commando. His Cyclops, and his Wolverine and all that. Like it's what the kids say these days is they understood the assignment. Capcom understood the fucking assignment.
Yeah.
Like, and God, and we're talking about it, what, 25 years later?
Yeah. It's the best. It's the best that it's ever looked. And not only that, but it's like the best pixel work I've ever seen. It's just phenomenal in every regard. It's a feast for the eyes. If you never even had hands on with the game, it's just like, look at it. Just look at it. It's amazing.
Another game that I used the 4 meg card on, I remember, was Dragon Force. You ever play that?
That worked on Dragon Force? I didn't know that worked on Dragon Force.
Yeah. It's not Capcom, but it's a 4 meg cart.
Huh. I didn't know that.
So I think it was because that game was like, I didn't normally play strategy games, but I did like this one. This is another Saturn memory for me. Just before we close out, another like what you call it, not hidden gem, because there was a sequel and people like it, but maybe a hidden gem now. It's a runner up. But it was
everything on the Saturn is hidden, basically.
Yeah, two like huge armies. These chibi pixel. Think like basically like the chibi style of Final Fantasy, but they had these big like Braveheart battles, and they would battle each other. And it just, I don't think it could run on the PlayStation. I think it ran without the cart, but it was a lot better with the cart.
I didn't know that. Yeah, they did have massive sprite numbers on that. It was like 50 versus 50 and stuff. It was just a massive melee. My good friend from college was really into that, and recently I was trying to tell him like, hey, you know, the Xbox runs emulators if you want to sit down and play Dragon Force. Get yourself an Xbox Series S if you want a lower investment and just play some Dragon Force.
Dude, that was a very good one. Yep. But anyway, I think that's pretty much it for the Saturn.
Well, let's run it down, right? So
okay,
my number 3 was Virtua Cop 2, and yours was
Saturn Bomberman.
All right, my number 2 was Panzer Dragoon Saga,
and mine was Virtua Fighter 2.
My honorable mention went to Bust a Move 2.
I had a lot of notes here, but runners up were all other Capcom fighters, and then I love Nights, Christmas Nights, Panzer Dragoon series, and I owned a bunch of fucking what's now Extreme Hidden Gems, Scud, Three Dirty Dwarves, and Dark Savior.
Yeah, honestly, if the Saturn had just been Capcom fighting games, it probably still would have been like my favorite system of all time. So,
is it your favorite system of all time?
It's one of them, but it's really because it's like these systems. The question is always right, like, do I really like this system and its library, or do I really like it because it lets me play the best version of a Capcom fighting game? It's really kind of not fair.
It's enough, dude. It's enough. I mean,
Yeah.
they scored the best version of the games we love, so there it is. And they also had other good shit too. God, another one, Clockwork Knight. That had some of the when I first put that in, that had like animation that was really new at the time. Like whenever the character would enter a level, it was just like, wow, this is incredible. Anyway, Bug. That's another one. Bug and Bug 2. God, those were good, dude. Great. Those are so good, dude. Anyway, keep going.
And yeah, and our number one, the first time this has ever happened, right? We both came out with the same one. X-Men versus
Street Fighter. I loved it, dude. It's so good. The colors, everything. It's it's like a perfect game. It's 10 out of 10.
Yeah, it really is. So much love to the Sega Saturn. You were too good for this world, much like the Dreamcast.
Yes.
It's you very underappreciated, but
yes.
At least outside of Japan. And God, I hope that Saturn core works out soon. It'd be really nice.
I know. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in again to season 2 of Gaming Gaiden. Let us know what you think would be good for our Patreon, because we kind of had to reconfigure that. But yeah, let us know. And yeah, we love going down memory lane like this. And yeah, the Saturn is really, God, it was just, as we've said so many times, it was so good. Yeah. So hats off to you, Saturn. Yeah, a thing of beauty. So we will check you later.
Peace.
Thank you.